in just a second, I will turn it over to Christina. She's here to talk to us about installing and showing us how to install some specific things like a low flow shower head and some faucet aerators. So we're really excited to have her here to talk to us about, how to be self-sufficient and sort of find some things that are really easy fixes that you can do yourself at home. So Christina is the master, but what we too, even novices like myself, can learn some basics here and tackle that home project without fear. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Christina.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. I guess I should probably start by asking, is there anything specific anyone wants to learn, or should I just go on my little tangent? I see everybody's muted. No chat room?
Yeah, if you've got something specific that you came here hoping to learn, feel free to drop that in the chat or unmute.
Okay.
Otherwise, we got plenty.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. So number one would be, why should you repair something instead of just replacing it? Landfill is a huge issue. We're running out of space, and especially if you have something that's older, it's probably made very sturdy. You're better off just repairing what you have. Money, of course, cost, time. Getting someone to come out to your house nowadays is getting harder and harder. So if it is something simple that you can fix yourself, it's better to just fix it. And a lot of the stuff when I go to houses is actually really, really easy to deal with. So first I'm going to touch on water conservation. I know here in the Northwest, it's hard for us to imagine places where there's no water, but guess what? There is. So if we can conserve what we can, it's always good. So there was a little kit that you guys were kind of notified about. Pick up from your water system. Now this is really, really old. And the guy, when I got it, said it's really, really old and nobody picks these up anymore. One of the reasons is this is your shower head. I don't know if you guys remember those. And then this one, rolling. It's supposed to be for your kitchen faucet. And I don't think any of us really use those anymore. And then it had some aerators. So the purpose behind these, you can see this little venting system, if you did pick one of these up, is to disperse the water so that less water gives you more washing of your hands, so to say. Most of your newer equipment already comes with that feature built in. And I don't know if any of you guys have taken a shower in an older house, maybe an old B&B, where somebody flushes the toilet and your water turns hot and cold. I remember it was a thing kind of in the 80s, 90s to get a plumber out to fix that. Well, your newer shower connections come with that feature already put. It diffuses the water, it spreads it more evenly. So now we don't need, so if your faucet is anything newer than probably 90, you probably don't need one of these. And it's good for conserving water. The other is that little screen in there catches debris. So if you do have one of these old ones and your faucet isn't running fully, I know I was just actually it was a church, and they were like, oh no, water's coming out. And I went and I unscrewed the cap. Sure enough, it was full of just sediment, just things over time that build in, and cleaned that out, put it back on, water worked fine. Another thing, I took a picture, but I didn't know if it would actually show up. Sometimes the faucet, you turn it on and it's spraying out the side. You again find that a lot in older buildings. A lot of times all you have to do is just unscrew, clean it out some and screw it back in properly. And it'll usually stop the side squirting as well. They're handy, they're useful. But again, a lot of your newer faucets don't have these because it's built into the rig system. So that being said, I got some toys for us to play with. I'm going to go ahead and use the one from the kit. So out of your wall in your shower, you'll see something like this. The inset is a screw-in section too. So if you get a remodel, they'll change this usually to match your new system. Let me pause real quick. let me point out something. Your toilet has a shut off next to the hose where it's connected. Your kitchen sink, underneath, there's a shut off. Your bathroom sink, underneath, there's a shut off. When you're dealing with your shower, there usually is not. So if you have someone working on your shower, your bathtub, and they tell you they have to turn the water off to the house, that's why. There isn't any nozzles or knobs that they can shut off. Once they open up the pipes, the water will run unless the water to the house is shut off. When I do newer remodels, I often ask the homeowner, well, I kind of encourage it. I'm like, oh, would you like me to put a water shut off someplace accessible and where it'd be a good place to hide one of these? If you've got a back wall in a closet, you know, someplace close to the system. I did a sitting tub system where she was going to put a chair and plant over there. So I have just a little panel with some shut-offs to the tub over there. So that's important to know that that's why they shut the water off to the house. So when you're changing your shower head, I know none of us use this anymore. You put that on there, or let's say the hose is a big one, and you screw it on there, turn on the water, and water's just spraying all over. And the hoses are really good for that. We'll just spray. You tighten it and you tighten it and you feel like you're going to break something. So the key to that is just plumber's tape. There is a variety of different kinds. You can get them in all different setups. The kit came with a little thing, but I'll tell you the number one area people make mistakes with the plumber's tape is how they put it on. So righty tighty, lefty loosey. If you're gonna, and I did bring kitchen sink stuff too. If your hand is moving in the clockwards motion, that's your righty tighty. If it's not going clockwise, that means you're loosening things up. When you're under the kitchen sink, a lot of times it's, am I turning right? Am I turning left? Just remember which way is your wrist moving. So when you're putting plumber's tape on something, you want to take it and you want to take that right, that same way. How much do you use? I don't know. How bad is it squirting? I usually like to give it a nice thick layer, and it usually rips just really easy. And then most of these have a loosening. So you're just going to make sure you've got a good on there, and then just turn it to the right and then give it another nudge. One thing about plumbing, especially with your newer things, a lot of them are made out of plastic. And if you pull too hard or press too hard, you can actually break it. Some people, you know, if you don't like this extra white that's hanging out, you can roll it up, maybe even cut it off. You just want that seal there. But before you try to clean up this white that you find unattractive, make sure you've got a good seal. Turn your water back on, try again, and usually it works. Oops, not sure what happened there. So just so you know, I'm getting older and I do need glasses when I read. How to dispose of residential construction waste? Excellent question. Want to learn about changing bathroom toilet? Wonderful. I actually brought some toys to deal with that. Let me hit I'll deal with waste towards the end. I actually have some stuff here to show you common household waste and what to do with it. We're going to talk about plumbing a little bit more. So your water sprays out from your hose, your water sprays out from your pipes. A lot of times just putting on some tape will fix that problem. We're going to talk about leaks real quick. So I recently went to a house that the plumber had been out 3 times and the sink was still leaking I do work at not just residential, but I have a couple churches and some nursing homes. I take care of things too. And they, of course, get really bad wear and tear on their stuff, more industrial, 100 people coming in at the same time. So I went to the residence, though. It was the bathroom sink. This is just a cheap Home Depot. This isn't anything fancy. Went to the residence and checked, and sure enough, plumbing was spot on. Ran, pretty much all the checks: dry rag, cloth, water, touching, spot on, not a problem. And she's like, but it's been leaking. Plumber's been out 3 times. It's still leaking. And there's nothing wrong with the plumbing at all. So in this case, she had a new faucet put on. Probably don't use both of this. She had a new faucet put on. We're just going to use this as the counter. And these come, attached, or this attached with a plastic sheeting. Sometimes they come off, sometimes they don't. So this goes on like this. And then underneath, all of your faucets are going to be like this. Not maybe specifically this size, this kind, but there's going to be an under attachment that screws on. Oops. It screws on, and that's how your sink is held in place. Your plumbing, your water gets connected here with a different attachment, but what actually holds your sink on is these little turns. And they come in different sizes and shapes. Some have, you know, this, some have that, but that's what holds one side, not the other. That's what holds it onto your countertop. So in this particular case, what had happened was when the plumber changed out the top, he didn't take all of the old caulking off. So after it's in place, you put caulking around it to give it a seal. Replaced without cleaning up the old caulking, which meant when it came back down again, it wasn't sealed completely across the top. And even though he put on new caulking, it was the kids' bathroom. And if you've ever been into a bathroom after the children have washed their hands, you know, they climb up on something, water goes flying everywhere. So it wasn't leaking because of the plumbing. It was leaking because just enough water was getting through here and coming down the holes that have to be drilled in the countertop to put the plumbing through. So if you're checking your plumbing and you can't find the leak and everything seems right, but why are you still getting water? I would recommend cleaning out your caulking and putting new caulking on there, because there's a really good chance that it could just be leaking from a necessary hole that's required. Caulking and grout are my two pet peeves, I think, when I go to houses. That's where the most damage comes from. You've got water leaking through where the caulking should be. You've got water leaking through old grout. You clean up those two things and often the leak stops. I definitely do house calls and I charge per whatever. For the most part, I do free estimates and I can't give an estimate over the phone until I actually see what the problem is. That is a good question though, but yeah, I'm going to talk about other fun stuff. Okay, your water gets hooked on here, and again, use your tape. It does not hurt to put tape where you don't need it. You can always tape when you don't need it. You can't always, well, that's not true. You can go back and tape later, but you're better off just putting it there in the first place. Okay, so basic install, screws on. So if your kitchen sink is another one that gets loose quite frequently, because it gets a lot of wear and tear, bumping pots, pans, things get shoveled. If it starts loosening and shaking around, all you got to do is go in and tighten that up on the bottom, and that'll probably hold it in place. Same with bathroom sinks, same with everything. So the other thing I wanted to point out for you home doers, they make these cute little kits nowadays. You can get the whole, this one, I don't actually support any particular brand or anything, but this has a whole everything in it. And one thing I want to point out, if you can't afford a plumber, or you just can't schedule one, to be perfectly honest, we all work, right? So how can you be home from the window of 9 a.m. to sometime on Friday, right, for when they do? So plumbing actually has a lot of give as far as, you know, a lot of the jobs I do. Sorry, I have a perpetual 2-year-old that keeps it. It's a puppy, not a person, but he's wanting attention. Plumbing has quite a bit of give compared to, say, tile work or trim or other things where you really need that within 1/32. There's usually about a 1/4 inch give that plumbing has, but they make things even easier nowadays. These are flexible plumbing, and you can buy them for kitchen setups. You can buy them for your bathroom vanity. Now, the disadvantage to this is because it does have all of these little things in it, things can clog in there fairly easy. When I say easy, I mean like maybe every 3 to 5 years you have to take it out, clean it off, put in a new one. But if you're not a real skilled at exactly where this measurement is, exactly where, how do I get that to bend right this way or bend right that way, these are great. And you may never, never, never have a problem. It's kind of more of an industrial, eventually it'll clog if you put too much grease in it, too much to that. Another thing I really want to point out is the way you put on your seals. So this is a really common mistake. And these kits have them pre-set up too, so you don't have to be a genius. I think we've all seen these, right? Here it goes into the wall. That goes into the rest of your plumbing. It's attached. So the kits are nice. They're pre-set up. They just take all the work out of it. They're set. So the way that you want your seal is you want the outer lip to hit your rim and you want the inside part to go into your seam. So there. Pop that off. I don't know if you can tell, see how it's got an angle to it? They're not straight flat. One side's thicker than the other. So you want your base where you have your, I did drop it. You want your base to where your screwing end is. That just goes around just like that. And then where it goes into the pipe is where you want it to be thin. And then you just screw it on. And again, I know even the picture up front had all of these wrenches and power tools, but especially in using the newer equipment, it's plastic. So you really just want it hand tight. I mean, a good hand tight. But if you start using wrenches and things on it, you could break and fracture the plastic, and then you're back to square one. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. Little mister, grab one of my plumbings. Apparently he thought he was going to put in a bathroom faucet. Okay, that's real simple. There's directions and all these things. If under your kitchen sink is problematic, really easy. Go get a kit and YouTube anything. It doesn't hurt to YouTube. It doesn't hurt to try. Make sure your water cutoffs are done. Make sure that when you go to pour water to see if your drain is draining, that you just use a little bit so you don't have to completely mop up the whole center. Okay. Is there any questions about sink faucets or under the sink plumbing? I'm going to move on to shower. Okay. So your shower, like I pointed out, does not have the same cutoffs. It's not as easy to work with as the sinks and the toilets and things like that. So your new systems, again, I just picked up whatever's cheap. Your new systems has the flow centers already hooked in, or there's a separate casing. To get to it though, that's when you tear the wall off. Why is it so expensive to have your shower fixed? Because you have to tear the wall open to get to those pieces. To clean a kitchen sink drain, there are multiple things on. No. Okay, sorry. I'm just answering. You guys don't even know what I'm reading. First question is, what is the best way to clean a kitchen drain? The answer is, what is down your drain? There are some Drainos, if it's like a heavy grease issue, it's a lot of what are you cooking? Pastas will create a lot of grease and clogging that way. Is it going through the garbage disposal? You don't want to use a heavy industrial chemical that's going through the garbage disposal. So read your products, see what it is, see what it does. Your toilet probably does not need, I mean, we all do, right? We stick Drano down the toilet, but a lot of times that requires a snake. And I do have one of those fairly handy. I could run and get and show you what those do and how those work. If it is a actual physical clog, that was one of the reasons I got the kit to show you. Sometimes you actually do need to just loosen everything up and dump it out. I have a lot of children in my life and they will shove pretty much anything in anywhere. So if it's peanut butter, goo, or something that's just taking too long, something got shoved in there, sometimes just take it apart. You know, I mean, keep track of your pieces, what went where, clean it out, maybe take a brush to it, and then you can just put it back. And usually for plumbing, that is the case. You can usually dismantle it, clean it, and put it back, and you don't even have to buy a new piece. So maybe those little seals, that little seal that I showed you, that's kind of, you might need to get some new ones of those, but for the most part, plumbing's reusable. So your shower setups and your kits is a different ballpark. It's going to be in the frame, in the structure, and they have different attachments for different things. We talked about the hoses, and this is really the simplest thing. Just tape it. Oh, I was going to tell you what happens when you do it wrong. Let me do that. Okay. Tape it clockwise. If you do your tape wrong, you'll find out fairly fast. Okay, doesn't matter, right? It's just tape. It's no big deal. I'll just throw that on there. I got that. And when you go to screw something into it, I didn't have that back far enough, you'll end up unscrewing your tape in the process. And then swearing happens, you know, you want to YouTube whoever it was that did that because it's just hilarious. And frequently they will retape it again wrong. So make sure that whichever way your thing is turning, you've got the tape turning so it's not undoing your tape every time you take a spin. Actually, I don't know how much of this I really want to get into, but I do want to show you another feature. That's why, sorry, but because all of that stuff is behind the wall, that's why it's so expensive to fix anything back behind the shower, because you have to tear the wall open. If it's tile, there's more expensive in demoing. If it's one of those mainframe, unless you've got a wall on the backside where they can access it, it's tearing all that out and putting that all back together. That creates the biggest problem. Okay, my little set here. I bought the shower set and probably all I needed was this. If you have an older plumbing system, I don't know if I actually answered that question. Do you have to turn the water off from outside? The answer is no, unless it's the shower or bathtub. There should be cutoffs next to your toilet. There should be cutoffs underneath your sinks. If there is not, I would call a plumber to install them. That is also another place for a leak, especially I work on a lot of houses, 1910, 1920. Sometimes the cutoffs over time just wear out. Everything wears out over time. Okay, if you're dealing with an older faucet set, a lot of times you're like, how do I fix this? How do I get to this? These little crystalline ones in particular have this cap area. They just pop right off. So if your water is leaking through here, which is very, very common, I have it right here. I have one right here. This is going to be a pretend. There should be a real screwdriver here. Underneath your things, and you'll find it on your other water faucets too. Maybe it's red or it's blue, but there'll be a little button area. Generally speaking, underneath that little button area is a screw. So it could be, or most likely it's going to be a Phillips. So often if you tighten that back down, that helps this connect with this better, and that leaking will just stop. And so before you call a plumber to rip out your shower wall, check to see, is it something that just needs tightened? These are another area where things get broken. I was at a house recently where the husband had gotten mad and just ripped it off, bent up the whole pipes and bent off the everything. These come in different sizes and shapes. This particular one is a screw-on one, you know, where the water comes out from your bathtub. This one's a screw-on, meaning the plumbing has to be exact. So if you have one of these that broken and you're thinking it has to be exact, I'm going to have to pay thousands of dollars for a plumber to come in here and rechange the pipe and get everything. No, go replace this part. So these come in the chrome, the brushed nickel, and you can get these in replacement pieces. What you'll be looking for is one that has a white center. The white center ones usually will take the plumbing pipe straight on, and it doesn't matter the length to a certain extent. It needs to go in and it needs to connect, but often your brass piping can be cut down if it needs to be, and you can replace just this without spending thousands and thousands of dollars of tearing all of your wall open, the 2 weeks that it's going to take to undo everything and rebuild anything. Sometimes you can just fix this piece, and they come in all different colors and replacements. Okay. Question. So, any questions about any of that? Am I too boring? There's no feedback. Okay. So those are your basic problems that happen. I'm sorry.
Good information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some water conservation. Now, if you have any of the newer attachments and you want them, now this one, that I went and picked up, this wasn't even 20 bucks for the bathroom sink. I think it was like $16, $17. And this has all of the new water saving gadgets and gadgets already built into it. I just showed you how to install it. So that's nice. Of course, it's kind of ugly, right? So you might want to pick something else nicer. But if you're going to replace any of your faucets, it's really, really simple. But this right here, my friends, is your #1 toilet problem of all time. Does anybody know what this is? This is your little flapper in your toilet. And I left it in the container and did not open it up because I wanted you to see something very important on here. This says 5-year warranty. Now, for those of anybody else here over the age of 40, 5 years goes really, really fast. It goes really fast. You close your eyes, you go to bed one night, you wake up and you're like, it's been 15 years later. And frequently when I go fix something, people are like, I just did that. And I'm like, really? What year? And they're thinking, well, so-and-so was about to. And I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. So, and of course, things don't always last worth their warranty. So this is just a little piece of rubber plastic. And what'll happen, sometimes they just wear out, right? It's in there with the water. Maybe you've used some toilet bowl cleaners, a little bit of chemical, all of that kind of stuff, and they just wear out. Sometimes you've got kids that play with the knob. So that little chain piece, I think I am going to go ahead and open this up. If any of you guys have ever been in the back of your toilet, these chains are not made very sturdy. This is not what I would call real steel, tough endurance kind of stuff. This is kind of cheap tin plastic. So you got to figure if it's doing one of these every day, multiple times a day, for how long, eventually this thing is going to have some give to it. Or another thing, rust happens and they start twisting up so that they're connected, and then your flush isn't right. Your toilet's not closing. You can hear it, right? You flush your toilet and you walk away and it's still running. You can hear it. And it's really irritating. Sometimes if you open up the back of your tank, this chain just needs straightened out again. It's gotten caught and twisted. You can reset these really easy. This little clipper here, you just bend it out. And then this little piece right here comes, I mean, you kind of have to play with it a little bit. So you can change the amount of hook. You can just move the hook to anywhere you want it on your thing. So sometimes your flapper just is worn. It's just old. It's deteriorated. You just need to replace it. And these are less than $10. Again, I don't subscribe to any particular brands. In this case, this one said it was a universal, fits all, takes care of everything. It says it can work from the 2-inch, the older, smaller, to the larger ones. It's got this extra little wrap. It's also got a little bit of a weight to it. Some of these have floats, some of these have this, some of these have that cause them to fall back down, because that's what you really need to do. And these little attachments here are really easy. Around your toilet bowl, you'll see there's just a couple little pegs. These go right on that. This gets hooked to your lever. Oh, by the way, those levers are attached the same exact way that your kitchen sinks are. So if you've got, because I've had people are like, oh, my lever's loose, I can't. I'm like, yeah, you walk in and you just take that and you just tighten it back. It's just got something on the other side that just tightens it right on there. Reach in there, screw that back, it's fixed. So if your toilet's running, #1 thing to check is this. The other is the plunging system. And I've tried to do classes on those before. Unfortunately, it's really hard without having an actual toilet to show you. So I'm going to recommend that you YouTube that. And so now we're going to get into the toilet replacing section, what I can do sitting in the dining room. #1 fix for bathrooms, though, always check this first. They're less than $10. It's worth even replacing it just to see if that handles it. Okay, so we've all seen the home improvement shows, right? Toilet water's going everywhere. It's just, and they got it and they plastic bag it and they make a big mess of it. And that's drama. Just, you know, I have opinions about crime shows too. So when you go to replace your toilet, and it's really, really, really easy. They're so easy. The first thing you do is your water cutoff. It's right there. It's attached. You can see that hose. There's only one hose. It's only cold water, one hose. It comes down. There's a little lever there. Turn that off. And then you flush your toilet. That's easy enough, right? And then it comes into time consuming. So your toilet will not flush out all of its water. There will be a little bit left in that little tube, and there will be a little bit left in the tank. You'll see where your little plunger thing is. This is usually raised up maybe a half an inch. So there's going to be water all through that zone. So then you're going to just take a rag. I usually use a small dish for a little while, and soak up all the water, and then I just put it in a bucket and just repeat the process. I usually play some music, maybe a comedian, maybe the news, and you just stick your hand in the toilet, wear gloves if you're, nervous about that, and just make sure you get all of that water out. Just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. That'll make you much happier in about 3 minutes. It might take 10, 20 to get all of the water out, but you really want all of the water out. The next thing you're going to do is, remember that little latchy thing I just showed you? Let me grab that again. It's literally right here. Oh, sorry. Okay, so that little hose that you've turned your water cutoff for, and you can tell you've got it off properly when your water isn't running. After you flush your toilet, water will start running again. If it's running again, you went the wrong way. Turn it the other way. Your toilets are going to come with all of its accoutrements. So it'll come with everything it needs to be a toilet. They would probably get a lot of, why didn't you add the flapper emails? I'm sorry, the question I read was, does the new toilets have flaps in them? Yes, every toilet I've installed from all different brands and different types come with everything that you need. Maybe not the water hose, potentially, because that's what size from the toilet to the thing, and that's more custom, but everything else is usually in there. So your toilet hoses, and they buy those one size fits all, click and ready. You don't have to be exact on that. The click and ready or the one size fits all may cost you $1 or $2 more, but why not, right? You've just saved yourself a trip trying to figure out the right size. But it's all likewise, like this, it has a big plastic thing. Sometimes they're attached to the hose, and it's going to unscrew. And it should not be so tight that you need a wrench. It should be on there good, but you should be able to, I guess it depends on your strength. I actually forget how strong I am. So yeah, and then that just comes down. Now, this is important with water or with removing your toilet. When you take this off, keep it upright, because you've just gotten all of the water out of your toilet, except guess what? This hose is still full. So usually when I'm undoing one of those, I have a rag ready and underneath it, because when you go to move this hose, it's going to splash everywhere. It's going to get your pants wet, your socks wet, whatever, and you're going to be frustrated. So make sure that even though you've drained everything out of the toilet, you keep something handy, because that hose is still going to be full of water. Then you should be disconnected. That's the only thing attaching water to your system. You're safe. Water's off, hose is done. Now you have 2 little bolts on the side. I'm sure we've all cleaned them, right? You get down there and you're like, how did they get what there? And it's there. So there's only those 2 little bolts. Your toilet should be empty. It's going to be kind of lightweight at that point. Most of the weight on those is water. And again, righty tighty, lefty loosey. Now these, depending on how old your toilet is, may be rusty. The bolts may have already come off. There's 101 things that could happen in that case. But for the most part, if you need to, spray the bolts, because you're going to put new ones on when you replace it. So unscrew those bolts and your toilet should just move. That's it. That's all that's attaching it, is that one little water hose and those 2 little bolts. The rest of it was mostly held in place from the water from the tank. And same thing, if your toilet is wobbly, you want to tighten those bolts back down, because over time, we all know that things just come loose over time. They just do. A little bit of rattling, a little bit of shaking. Maybe somebody's playing the bass too loud and rattling the windows and bolts just come undone. So I'm glad you brought up the toilets, because this is another peeve of mine. This is a beeswax ring. You guys see that? This is what for generations and generations they used to install toilets. When you're gonna mess with this stuff, make sure you have something handy. So this was a wonderful use at the time. It was the latest invention probably at some point or another. So when you sit on a toilet, right, you've just now shifted its weight. Maybe you're going to move, maybe you need to reach over to get the toilet paper or whatever. So that whatever it is connecting the toilet to the plumbing has to have some give. It has to be not real flexible, but flexible enough that it will seal that pipe without breaking the pipe when somebody sits on it or I don't know, some people rock, whatever you do. So beeswax was used for years and years and years. So it's not, well, okay, it can be fun to play with. It's sticky. That's great. It also has bend and move in it. But as you can see how easily I'm denting that, it also means that it's prone to deteriorate fairly fast. These likewise, like the flipper, are only supposed to be good for 5 years, sometimes less than that. If you set your toilet on them wrong, you've now indented it, maybe created a groove in it for water to escape and get out, and then it gets reset. They're messy, they're obnoxious, but they were needed. I mean, that's why we used them for so many years. But nowadays, if you go down the plumbing aisle, you will see Magic Plumbing, one size fits all. They have a rubber plastic coating. You can reset them, you can remove them. If you replace your beeswax with one of those, you'll probably never have to do it again. So these are $2. The other ones are about $10. I recommend getting one of the other. There's multiple different brands, sizes, forms. Frequently, if you're going to replace your beeswax in your toilet, you're probably going to need to redo your frame too. Those bolts, again, they rust, they lock, they break off, all kinds of things happen. And you'll find those right next to the beeswax. It's all down your repair aisle. Not your plumbing per se aisle, but your repair aisle. And again, multiple brands, multiple types, multiple setups. I think they all have videos. And then you just do the system backwards. I will give you one tip. What am I going to do with this, right? Normally, and toilets come with this. They come with the beeswax. One of the first things I do is toss it. This is the first time I've bought one in forever. I always buy the rubber one size sealer. And those, again, they have a longer life. They're easier to use. If you misset your toilet, you can just reset your toilet. They're wonderful. Let me find the case for this though. Oh, yeah. The toilet comes with this. Just go ahead and toss that or give someone to play with. I don't know. They're kind of messy though. So make sure you've got the things to fix that. Okay, so toilet 101 in setting your toilet. Again, I don't know if your subfloor is tore out, if that has to be replaced, or you're doing your flooring. There's all kinds of things that can't really. The question that just came up is, can we have the number? And I think the girls will probably post it or put it someplace. So all of that other stuff is going to be questionable until you're actually seeing and doing it. That's, I can't really give advice there. But so when you put your toilet back though, now remember, you didn't use one of these rubber beeswax things. You actually got the rubber thing, and it'll have holes in it to go over the bolts. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be clean. You can touch it. It's going to be great. So you're going to use one of those. And then the bottom of the toilet has kind of it's usually in the ceramic. It's usually part of the form. And you're going to sit that right in that center. Now, I'll give you 2 cheats actually. Cheat number 1. Painter's tape is my friend. It is my best friend. So one of the problems, especially if you're setting a toilet by yourself, if you have a friend, I recommend it, is you take this painter's tape. I'm going to use this again. So we're going to say, for example, these 2 little holes that I cut here are where your bolts are underground. Toilets are big and heavy and you can't really see. I'm going to take painter's tape and I'm going to put it with a pointer just a few inches out where my bolt is. not right on my bolt, because I have the toilet, I'm going to have to sit down, but I'm going to put them to the sides of my bolt. And that way, when I'm standing and I'm lifting the toilet and I'm trying to figure out where my bolts are, my painter's tape will show me. And I can see from this video, the orange on the cardboard isn't really good, but I mean, imagine if this were, maybe use blue if you're, or some other color. But so you want to mark your ground where your bolts are outside the area. And then that way, when you're holding the toilet and sitting down, you can see where they need to go. Once you get the toilet holes, it's going to be part of the toilet over those bolts, and you can see they're sticking out. You can kind of shuffle the toilet back and forth. You can tell that this inset part of your toilet is in your new rubber gasket. You're good, everything's great. And then you go to tighten the bolts. Next thing you want to do, I mean, you can tighten your bolts up quite a bit actually, but then you want to rehook up your water, turn your water back on, and fill that tank back up again. The reason is that's going to give your toilet better seating. All of that weight in there is going to help shift it down and make sure that you're nestled nice and good into your drain pipe. I recommend if you have someone to sit on the toilet, have them sit on it. The weight of the water and the weight of the body will help get those bolts tightened correctly. If you don't measure water, and there's been toilets I've gone back to, they're like, it's kind of loose. And I'm like, really, what did I? And I'm thinking, I didn't fill the water up. I tightened it up without filling the tank. And of course it's still loose. So make sure you get your water in there. Again, if you can have somebody sit on the toilet just to get all that weight, make sure you're nestled in as tight as possible, and then tighten those up. And tighten them again, by hand is good. Although I am stronger than most people, I do have to acknowledge that. Oh. So yeah, toilets are easy. The other feature now is that they have the one size or the one piece toilet. And that's actually what I have in the house, is those one pieces. Those are really, really, really hard to install by yourself because of the walls or the this and that, how you need to get your hand up in there. So if you're trying to do a one piece toilet and you find yourself swearing a lot, yeah, it just happens. So maybe have a jar to put some quarters in, buy yourself some ice cream when you finish. But because of trying to get all of those angles and get everything, it can be kind of awkward. Most toilets though have two pieces, where the area that I told you about that nestles in there is separate from the tank. And then the tank has a separate set of screws. And again, relatively, it's a lot like these, only a little bit different. They're rubber all the way through. And that rubber section comes into the holes of the tank. So I just recently did a toilet repair when I saw the leak, because they're like, oh, we turned it off, we didn't know what was going on. And it was actually those rubber pieces where the tank was installed, or tank assembles to the actual toilet. Those had gotten worn and torn and, well, not torn, but just corroded from air on one side, water on the other side, temperature differentials. But you have to remember, not everything is designed to last forever. Almost nothing is designed to last forever. So eventually those rubber pieces, gaskets, screws come loose. It's just part of life, and it's not intentional. That screw that came loose in the middle of the night wasn't trying to piss you off. Okay, so I just got a notice that we're running out of time. I'm sorry, I just babbled the whole time. So before we go though, I definitely want to talk about a couple of other things. I have all of this stuff. So cleanup. Okay, I gotta hit a couple more things. A lot of the home repair stuff, the problem that you're having, if it's your towel rack or you're this or you're that, light fixtures, even your faucets, a lot of times they have an Allen screw. This is a big one, so you can see it on the camera. But a lot of times those pieces are attached with just something this big. So make sure that you have in your toolbox. You don't have to have all the tools. As a matter of fact, I strongly recommend going to the tool library for almost everything. But you want a flathead, you want a Phillips, and you want Allen wrenches. If your light is coming loose, if your towel rack is coming loose, if all of that stuff, it's probably an Allen wrench that needs to tighten that screw up. They come in standard, in metric. They come in all different sizes and shapes. They usually, whatever it is that gets attached, usually has one that particular size. It doesn't hurt to keep just a set handy. Okay, now I want to talk about waste. This is really, really, really important to me. There was a question earlier about disposing of stuff from construction sites, and I have all kinds of issues in that regard. But if it's household waste, it's generally just classified as household waste, and you can take it to the garbage dump. Unfortunately, even if it's toxic, often it's just classified as household waste. So we do have a mobile waste mobile. So you can email that, or what we usually do in our house is we keep on the refrigerator, so I don't know that Drano really qualifies, but sometimes there's things around the house that are toxic or older that should not be thrown in the landfill. And you can usually tell by the smell. If it smells like something that might be dangerous, look it up. If it looks like something rusty and corrosive, look it up. Anything that you have a question, is this toxic or is this good to put in the garbage? Look it up. There's a gazillion different things on the market, so I can't give you a list of every single thing, but Googling, you can Google on your phone, you can Google on the computer, maybe you can ask a friend, but you'll find that to dispose of things properly. I like this earth. I'd like to stay here for a long time. I'd like to take care of it while I'm at. So in my line of work, I end up with a lot of garbage and I end up with a lot of debris, and it's everywhere. This is paint, right? We all seen it. Now, some of your older paints had lead and all kinds of stuff in it. Thank you that they've banned all of those. And I did actually go get my lead license too, just because any house before 1978 probably has lead in the paint. I think we've all heard stories of how bad that is for children. Well, paint spills and can be problematic. We also have, right, our old paintbrushes, our thises, our that's. I don't know if you guys can see this. I just made myself a nice little mess here. But it's not just paint. Oil is another good one that spills. All kinds of stuff that you don't want a mess. And oil in rags is not my least favorite. I think I can get a little pissy about things like that. You hear a lot of times about a mechanic shop or someplace catching on fire because they had a bunch of old oily rags in a container or shoved back someplace or this or that. So paint spills, oil spills, anything kind of spills is really, really easy to deal with. This, my friends, is a good friend of mine. This is just kitty litter. Just kitty litter. That's all. Just kitty litter. Kitty litter has that wonderful property of absorbing moistures and liquids. So you spill paint, you spill oil, you spill something that's potentially dangerous. Let's hope you don't have too many dangerous things. Just throw some kitty litter in it. I don't have a cat, but I keep kitty litter in the garage. You can also use it for snow and ice. But see how it just absorbs everything and then it clots up and it dries real quick and easy, usually within a day. So if you have old paints in a can, old paint in a jar, old paint, let's be nice to our recycles and the people that work in the garbage industry, because we really like them, because most people don't want their job. So let's be respectful to them and make sure that any fluids, any liquids that we have are disposed of, dried out, so that way they don't have to step in it, touch it, have the machine exploded on them. It's just a respect issue as far as I'm concerned. Kitty litter.